In 1941, I was 3.5 years old. My family was forced from our home in Romania to Ukraine. We were herded into a concentration camp, essentially left. I came to Nuremberg to provide historical context to the current global threat confronting our civilization. These past 2.5 years have been especially stressful as painful memories were rekindled. In 1941, I was 3.5 years old. My family was forced from our home in Romania to Ukraine. We were herded into a concentration camp, essentially left to starve. The Holocaust did not begin in the gas chambers of Auschwitz or Treblinka. The Holocaust was preceded by 9 years of incremental restrictions and on personal freedom, and the suspension of legal rights, civil rights, and essentially human rights. The stage was set by fear-mongering and hate-mongering propaganda. A series of humiliating, discriminatory government edicts demonized Jews as spreaders of disease. We were compared to lice. The real viral disease that infected Nazi Germany was eugenics. Eugenics is the elitist ideology at the root of all genocides. If we are to avert another Holocaust, we must identify ominous current parallels before they poison the fabric of society. Few people recognize foreboding similarities between current policies and those under the Nazi regime. In 1933, the primary target of discrimination were Jews. Today, the target is people who refuse to be injected with experimental, genetically engineered so-called vaccines. Moral significance of the Nuremberg Code cannot be overstated. The Nuremberg Code is the most authoritative, internationally recognized document in the history of medical ethics. In 1961, in his farewell address to the nation, President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned against the increasing domination of the military-industrial complex. We must be alert to the danger that public policy could itself become the captive of a scientific technological elite. A posse of ruthless, interconnected global billionaires has gained control over national and international policy-setting institutions. They have embarked on implementing a diabolical agenda, embraced by the most powerful global billionaire technocrats who gather in Davos, big tech, big pharma, the financial oligarchs, academics, government leaders, and the military-industrial complex. These megalomaniacs have paved the road to another Holocaust. The weapons of mass destruction are genetically engineered injectable bioweapons masquerading as vaccines. Unless all of us resist, never again is now.
In 1941, my family and I were evicted from our home in Romania. We were made to wear the yellow star, and we were deported to Ukraine, to a concentration camp in Ukraine. It was winter, and we didn't go by train, but rather by a rickety boat. We had to cross a river, the Dniester. And the boat was almost going to possibly capsize. It was very rickety, standing room only. And my father took off his winter coat and threw it into the water. He later died of typhus in the camp. And I attributed it to his having a winter coat. It was very cold. And a little bit I blamed myself because I kept my little toy. He threw his coat and I kept, so I felt I was selfish. The camp that we were at was not a death camp,
Okay.
but death was always in the air. The threat of it was constant. There were lists that would be put up, and then you were sent. Some were sent for slave labor, and others. There were, people don't realize it, there were more than 4,200 camps all over Europe. And so we were left to starve. This was not a regimented camp. We didn't have the tattooed numbers that we had now. But it was death all around. And after my father died, I was really, really terrified that something would happen to my mother, because then, I was constantly living in fear. And my mother got wind of the fact that this was in, 44. She got wind of the fact that some orphan children would be rescued. So she lied and put me on the list
Of orphan children.
of orphan children. And that's how I got out of there. This was already 44. This was when they were soon going to be liquidating all camps that still had Jews in them.
Mm-hmm.
I want to mention that the 1C conference, January 1942, was where the top 15 Nazi officials launched the final solution. So again, in 2020, I got chills when Bill Gates said on national TV that the final solution to COVID would be a vaccine. I know what final solution is. And to make matters even worse, when the interviewer said to him, he laughed. Bill Gates laughed, yes.
Yeah.
So if you don't see parallels, I mean.
Right. So you're put out as an orphan. You end up being grouped up. And there's a moment where you're choosing what boat to go on, right? That I am always amazed at these miraculous decisions, because it truly was a decision that would ultimately define whether you lived or died.
Yeah. After I left the camp, I was kind of a child in transit for about 10 months. And the ultimate destination was Palestine. When we finally were headed we had to leave Romania by boat to Istanbul. And en route, I befriended a family. I have to say, during the 10 months, I had to assess people who could take care of me, because I knew I couldn't take care of myself. I was little. By the way, I didn't grow in the camp. I left in the same coat that I went in.
Wow.
And I was there 3 years. So en route, I befriended a family who was also going to Palestine. And when we got to the harbor, there were 3 small boats. And they started to call out the names and assign which boat you were going on. And I was assigned to the boat with all the orphan children. I refused. I absolutely refused. And it was, quite I can't imagine it today. They would have probably, given me some ADHD drugs.
Right.
But somehow, I don't know, everybody went according to their assigned place, and I was left alone on the, and I cried, but no matter what they offered, I would not go on the boat. I only insisted. Now, it wasn't really capricious at all. I wanted to be with the family that I knew could take, I liked them,
Yeah.
trusted them,
Yeah.
trusted them. So finally, in the end, they did miraculously. They gave in to me, and I went on the boat with the family. And I used to get very seasick. So, but I finally fell asleep at night, so I didn't witness. But at night, the first night out at sea, a submarine torpedoed the boat with all the children.
Oh.
And I found out about it the next morning. Everyone was still, very upset because they witnessed the screaming children. And I realized, that I was right to disobey.
Mm.
And I guess when some kind of a crisis happens, I know that I have to rely on my own judgment.
Mm.
I don't obey. And no one can take that away. You see, I think that the problem is that so many people don't trust their own judgment, don't trust their own gut feeling, they don't trust their instinct. And all those are part of your human makeup.
Yeah.
You're not just an intellectual brain. You're not just, that's absurd
Yeah.
to limit people's capacity, the importance only to what their IQ is. I mean, that's nonsense. So much more to a human being. And I see that happening now. This is very similar. People are told to obey. Don't ask questions, obey.
Right.
That was the Nazi regime. That was the Soviet regime. A lot of regimes are like that. Is that where we all want to go? Why are people obeying?
Right.
These are illegal edicts anyway.
Yeah.
They're unconstitutional. They are channeling people into different concentration camps. They don't need barbed wire.
Right.
Digital surveillance,
Yeah.
the weapon, and it's been perfected. Exactly. The point is that the Holocaust should have taught people to have antenna out for any step that takes away your personal freedom and your God-given human rights.
Yeah.
It isn't government that gives us the right to say no. We're given a choice. You want to do the right thing or you want to do the selfish thing. That's our choice.
Yeah.
And no government should ever be interfering in that. And those who try to keep the lid on discussions about the Holocaust are making it irrelevant. They are committing a crime against the victims. Every victim, Elie Wiesel, who headed the President's Commission on the Holocaust before the museum was even established, he absolutely said the most important thing is the silence and indifference is what caused the Holocaust.
That's right.
It wasn't just a bunch of Nazi psychopaths. No, they initiated medical murder, and it began not even with the Jews. The first medical murder victims were German. They were German infants and young children under the age of 3. They were disabled in some way. Mm-hmm. The disabled were very much a target of Nazi Germany. It expanded into T4, it was called, that project, to older children. The mentally ill were totally decimated, and then the elderly in nursing homes. And there was some pushback about the adults and elderly, so they pretended that they stopped, but it just went underground. Those gray buses in Germany kept rolling, and everybody knew those gray buses were taking people, isolating them in order to disappear. They used the T4 program to test methods of killing, including Zyklon B gas.
How was it sold to the people?
With lies. That's how it's always sold. The parents were told that the children would be getting special treatment to improve their health. And then they were murdered by injections, but also some of the children and babies were put through starvation so that the doctors could document how long it takes a child to die without food.
Yeah.
I mean, it's horrific. But you see, and this, they turned 6 hospitals into killing centers.
Wow.
In March and April of 2020, the governments of Western Europe, Australia, Canada, about 5 states in the United States, essentially condemned the elderly to medical murder. This was a medical murder